Let's talk about 4.2 degree and radians. The first part of 4.2, we're going to go over angles and their measures. So you're going to have to follow my cursor each time I'm talking about its components. So the first component, we're going to go over initial side, terminal side, and standard position. So given this information, you don't have to copy the whole thing. Basically, you're going to start from where it says from this dynamic perspective. So basically, from this dynamics perspective, the starting position of the ray forms the initial side of the angle, while the ray's position after rotation forms the angle's terminal side. So initial side, if we were to draw just like in geometry, where we start, that's called the initial side. And then the second ray, where we stop for the angle, that's the terminal side. Now, given in the XY plane, where it says angles and standard position, as you can see, the x-axis, the y-axis, the initial side is always on the x-axis of the right side, so the positive side. And then wherever the second ray stops, that's the terminal side, and as you can see, it forms an angle. So again, from this dynamic perspective, the starting position of the ray forms the initial side of the angle, while the ray's position after rotation forms the angle's terminal side. Now, in the coordinate plane, that's the xy plane, an angle with its vertex at the origin and its initial side along the positive xy axis, so on the x-axis on the right side, is said to be in standard position. So, as I stated before, the initial side is always on the x-axis, the right side of it, or the positive side. The vertex is always in the origin, and wherever the second ray stops, that's the terminal side. All right, moving on to more parts of angles and their measures. So, the measure of an angle describes the amount and direction of rotation necessary to move from the initial side to the terminal side of the angle. This is where we have to specify between a positive angle and a negative angle. So, a positive angle, which this one should highlight or underline, is generated by a counterclockwise rotation. So from the initial side, here we have an example of a positive angle. As you can see from the initial side, the rotation is counterclockwise. If you follow the arrow towards the terminal side, you see how a positive angle is formed on the xy plane. Continue from the same sentence, a negative angle by a clockwise rotation. So let's look at the example here, negative angle. Starting from the initial side, the one on the x-axis, the right side, a negative angle moves in a clockwise position. So if you follow the black arrow, as you can see, the angle is moving in a clockwise position and it stopped at the terminal side. So when you are graphing angles, if you have a positive angle, you start from the initial side right here, and then move in a counterclockwise position, or rotation, I mean. If you have a negative angle, same thing as the beginning, you start from the initial side, and then you move in a clockwise rotation. Now this, the last diagram, ties into the unit circle. So the description, the most common angular unit of measure is the degree, which is equivalent to 1 over 360. Now the reason we say 360 is, of course, if we were to go around in one circle, make one rotation, that's 360 degrees. So, which is equivalent to 1 over 360 of a full rotation, counterclockwise, about the vertex. From the diagram shown, you can see that 360 degrees corresponds to one complete rotation, 180 degrees to a 1/2 rotation, 90 degrees to a 1/4 rotation, and so on. as marked along the circumference of the circle. So again, moving is counterclockwise rotation. If I were to go one full circle, so starting from 0, going one full circle, that's 360 degrees. Now if I were to continue the same direction from 0 to 180 degrees, so that means it was 1/2 of the rotation about the vertex. So it was 1/2 of what I went compared to 360 degrees. Now, starting from 0, if I were to go to 90, it would be 1/4 of what I did for 360. So that's basically what it means, and we're going to start talking about this when it comes to unit circle and especially radians.